I have reached an age where the skin on my hands looks like tissue paper stretched over bone, 78 years. It's a staggering number when you say it out loud, isn't it? It's a lifetime for some, a blink of an eye for others. But I'm not here to talk to you about the passage of time in the way a calendar does. I'm here to tell you the truth that I spent nearly 8 decades hiding from myself. I want you to look at me. Not as an old woman, but as a cautionary tale, because for 60 of those 78 years, I didn't actually exist. I was a masterpiece of social engineering. I was the architect of everyone else's comfort. I thought that my worth was measured by the depth of my silence and the breadth of my service. I believed, with every fiber of my being, that to be a noble woman meant to be a person who never said no. I said yes to a husband I didn't fully know, to children who consumed my identity, to parents who leaned on my strength until I was brittle, and to a world that was more than happy to take every ounce of what I offered without ever asking if I had anything left for myself. I thought I was being strong. I thought I was being the glue. I was wrong. I wasn't the glue. I was the sacrifice. And today I need to tell you why goodness can be the most dangerous cage you ever build for yourself. Let's go back. It was the late 60s when I walked down the aisle. 1968. The world was screaming for revolution, but inside the walls of my childhood home, the air was still. My mother, a woman who had mastered the art of disappearing, gripped my arm before I walked toward the altar. She told me, "Clara, a man's happiness is a woman's shield. If he is content, you will be safe." That was the inheritance I was given, the idea that my life was a secondary orbit around a primary sun. So I married Thomas. He was a decent man, a provider, a man of his era who never once thought to ask me who I was, because the world had already told him who I was supposed to be. I became a phantom in my own house. I mastered the choreography of the perfect life. I kept the floors shining, the children's knees scrubbed, and the dinners warm. I learned to read the weather of my husband's mood and adjust my own temperature to match. If he was cold, I was a blanket. If he was hot, I was a breeze. I never once stopped to ask, what is the climate of my own soul? And the most terrifying part, I wasn't miserable. Not in the way people think misery looks. I loved my babies. I liked the smell of clean laundry, but there was a low hum, a frequency just beneath the surface of my daily chores, that whispered, "Is this the person you intended to be, or just the one who was left after everyone else took their piece?" I ignored that whisper for 40 years. I muffled it with busyness. I drowned it in the needs of others. I remember 35. That's a vibrant age, isn't it? I had this burning hunger to study the classics. I wanted to surround myself with poetry and the history of ideas. I wanted to teach. I brought it up over dinner once. Just once. Thomas didn't shout. He didn't have to. He just looked at the stack of bills on the table and mentioned the kids' upcoming braces. He spoke about his own stress at the office. He said, "Maybe when things settle down, Clara, maybe later." So I put my hunger in a box and shoved it under the bed. 10 years later, the kids were heading to university. I felt a spark of hope. Now, I thought, now it's my turn. But Thomas was already talking about early retirement and his father's failing health. He needed a partner to help him navigate the twilight of his parents' lives. "Wait a few more years," he said. "We're almost there." So I waited. Then came 55. His parents were gone. My heart was pounding, surely now. But then my daughter's marriage collapsed. She came home with 2 toddlers, broken and needing a harbor. I became the harbor. I became the grandmother who was always there, the one who cooked the comfort meals and wiped the tears, while my own dreams turned to dust in that box under the bed. I told myself it was love. I told myself it was duty. I told myself that my self-erasure was a badge of honor. I didn't realize I was becoming a stranger to the woman I was meant to be. And then 7 years ago, the silence became absolute. Thomas died. 42 years of marriage ended in a sterile hospital room on a Tuesday morning. And suddenly, for the first time in my adult life, no one needed me to do anything. I went home to a house that felt like a museum of someone else's life. I sat in the kitchen and realized I didn't know how to make coffee for one person. I didn't know what color I wanted to paint the walls. I didn't even know if I liked the tea I had been drinking for 2 decades, or if I only drank it because he preferred it. I looked in the mirror at 71 years old and I broke. I didn't recognize the woman staring back. She was a hollowed-out shell. She had given so much of her light to keep others warm that she had forgotten how to generate heat for herself. I was terrified, not of death, but of the fact that I had lived 70 years without ever actually showing up for my own life. I had been a supporting character in a movie where I was supposed to be the lead. About a year and a half after the funeral, I was clearing out a trunk in the attic. I found a notebook I hadn't opened since 1966. It was full of my own handwriting, bold, curious, and sharp. I had written about my desire to see the ruins of Rome, my theories on literature, my belief that I had something unique to say to the world. I sat on that dusty floor and I apologized to that girl. I cried for the woman I had buried under layers of yes and later. That was the day I stopped waiting for a permission slip that was never going to come. I was 72 years old when I walked into a classroom for the first time in 50 years. I was the oldest person in the room. The teenagers looked at me like I was a relic. I didn't care. For the first time, the words I was reading weren't something I had to squeeze in between loads of laundry. They were my life. I started traveling. I didn't go on senior tours. I went to the places the girl in the 1966 notebook wanted to go. I sat in cafes in Paris and realized that the world didn't fall apart because I wasn't home to cook a Sunday roast. And then came the hardest part. I started saying no. My daughter called. "Mom, I need you to watch the kids for the weekend. I have a retreat." I looked at my syllabus. I looked at my own heart. "No," I said. "I have plans." There was a long silence on the phone. She was offended. She was shocked. She thought I was being selfish. And you know what? It felt magnificent. The world didn't end. She found another sitter. She adjusted. And I felt like I was finally taking a breath of air that belonged to me. I am 78 now. I have lived for myself for only 6 years. 6 years out of 78. That is the tragedy I want you to avoid. Listen to me. You are taught that your worth is a currency you must spend on others until you are bankrupt. You are told that being a good person means having no boundaries. It is a lie. You cannot light anyone else's path if your own candle has burned down to the wick. You cannot offer true love if you are offering it from a place of resentment and exhaustion. I see you. I see you at 20, 30, 40. Putting your passions on a shelf because someone else needs the space. I see you waiting for the right time. There is no right time. There is only time. Stop asking for permission to exist. The world will take as much as you give it. If you give it everything, it will take everything and leave you wondering where you went. I have 6 years of memories that are truly mine. 6 years of being Clara. I would trade every perfect year of my middle age for just 1 more year of this freedom. Time doesn't wait. It just goes. The water is never going to get warmer. Jump in. You are allowed to be yours. Live now.